There's a sort of a DeMartini thing, and you go, right, you're going to list down, you got 2 minutes, write down 50 things you want in the ideal girl. So you'd write down blah, 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 as stupid as they were, you know. Some of it was like, I don't know, I think I even wrote brunette at the time, ended up with a blonde, but just little things, just whatever comes on top of your head. And it's like, you know, I really believe putting that out to the universe and being really clear, the more clear you are on what you want, the more you're going to see it.
Hey folks, Jason here, your host of the Wealth Faculty podcast. And this week we change gears. Really, we change demographic, age group, and I get to chat to a very interesting young man, Tim Robards. Tim Robards is a chiropractor, a human biomechanics enthusiast, TV personality, speaker, inspired educator in health, and all-round fitness. He was catapulted into fame in the very first season of Australian Bachelor, or The Bachelor in Australia, and followed that was launched into the spotlight. He actually fell in love and got married with the lady on the show. So one of those rare human beings. It was a very cool and interesting conversation with Tim about overcoming challenges, becoming a parent, balancing career and success, property investing. He's an avid property investor himself. His faculty members, his parents, his mentors, his grandparents, the people who've surrounded him over the years have helped him push through limiting beliefs, self-doubt, those sorts of things, as he's become a bit of a household name in Australia, a leading role in the last 2 years, 2018 to 2020, in Neighbours and many other things. He launched his own fitness brand, the Robards Method, etc., etc. So, fabulous conversation. Really enjoyed this chat with Tim, and the things he shared certainly left some breadcrumbs to success, dealing with the spotlight and keeping your head and your wits about you as you progress through certain careers. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Tim Robards on the Wealth Faculty. Until then, take care. Bye for now. Tim, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on today.
Mate, been looking forward to this chat. It's been a little while since I've done a podcast, so back at it.
Well, thanks for choosing us to dust off your shoes, mate, to get back on the field.
Exactly,
Awesome.
Exactly. Well, I'm not wearing any shoes at the moment. I won't show you my feet, but I'm not even wearing any pants at the moment. But no one can see from the waist down, so we're good.
Well, I think that's the gift of COVID, isn't it? Everyone just lives in this little box. For those who are listening in on the podcast, we're on video, and you know the world sees us through that little thing. COVID brought you some gifts and some tough decisions this year. It brought you a beautiful, amazing gift. Your first baby on the scene, Anna.
Yep.
With Anna?
Yeah, so Anna and my little baby Elle. So it was. It's been a crazy year. I think I had a mate talking to me the other day about someone was talking with him, and instead of asking the question, why is this happening to me, he was like, I've got to start asking the question, why is this happening for me?
Yes.
And I think that's the key to this year. Why has this, asking yourself that question? Because, there's times where I've been so frustrated, but then other times I've got to look back and go, holy hell, I actually had an amazing year. It was probably one of the best years of my life with a lot of challenges. There was a lot of anxiety and stress through that year, but there were so many great things to come out of it as well.
One big one for you, you made a big decision. Your acting career is a passion. It's a place where you're really focusing now in your career. You've had some progression in multiple careers, but right now acting is a passion and where you're going. And you had to make a big decision this year throughout COVID and put your family first. Maybe how did you go with that?
Yeah, it was basically I was flying back and forth for 2 years. So every weekend I'd fly back to Sydney, fly down Sunday night, I'd fly down to Melbourne, and I'd be there 5 days and then come back. And sometimes I'd literally fly back late Friday night. So I'd sometimes only get one night a week with my wife. And that was through a lot of her pregnancy as well. And then it got to the point where we were getting towards the end in the final trimester, and, it was becoming like, it was tough. Like work was tough. Became harder. Even the simple things, when you're flying every week, it's really nice when I could do the fly ahead. I could rock up to the airport. If I finished, I'd never know exactly what time I was going to finish. So I'd always book the latest flight and hope that I got there earlier, jump on an earlier flight. And it was seamless. And there was a lounge and it was good. I would just switch into autopilot. It would take me, when I knock off work on a Friday, it would take me 5 hours to get home, but I was just used to that. And, but then when COVID hit and there was less and less planes, there's 1 or 2 planes a day, there was stress around that, whether you're actually going to even make that one plane. And then sometimes I might finish work. I might be lucky, finish at 10 o'clock, I start 6 a.m., finish at 10, and then I've got to wait till 6 p.m. for the flight. So I'm sitting at the airport with no lounge anymore for 6 hours, first world problems. But it just made the day so long. And when you've got a wife that you only get to see, who's pregnant, and you only get to see her like 1 or 2 days a week, even those hours matter. And then it got extra hard. Long story short, when they basically, I got locked down in Melbourne. I couldn't get back for about a month, and finally I came back. I was able to come back and isolate, but I got to see my wife then. And then during that is when they introduced the hotel quarantine. So it basically meant that I would have to go back for another month and then do 2 weeks in hotel quarantine, which was 6 weeks away from my wife, where I would not see her at all. And if anything happened in that time, or if she, it was in the last trimester, if she went into labor, there's no way I could get there. No way. They're not going to let you out of hotel quarantine. And so, it was a decision of leaving my wife for 6 weeks and also potentially not being there if something went wrong, or if something went right, it just not being there. But at the same time, I had a team of people that I was in the biggest story of the whole year with Neighbours, and I was loving the challenge and the acting, and everyone's story revolved around my story. And I didn't want to let the team down. It's such a team environment there, and everyone works together so hard. We do such big hours and that. And I'm like getting this thing of am I being selfish by being there for my wife and my child, or should I be there for work? And we ended up, long story short, I had to make the decision. I get cold sores, and I broke out in the biggest cold sore. I was so stressed, physically when you are getting stressed, when you break out. And I was just like, it was nuts. It was just that decision. Usually I'm really good with not worrying about the stuff that's out of your control. But this was a decision that was totally in my control. And that's where, when you've got those big decisions to make, who do I let down? That's where it becomes really hard. But inevitably I ended up having to leave early. It was only a month earlier, but it just meant that I could be there. But for Neighbours, it meant that they had to get another actor to fill in my role. So that was a big thing for them. But luckily it went fairly seamlessly, and they understood. They were very supportive once we made the decision, and I thanked them for that. But I never got to say goodbye. So you finish 2 years, I never got to have a farewell, goodbye. I haven't been back yet. And when I came back here to isolate, I always thought I was going back. So I never actually got to say goodbye to anyone. So it was really bittersweet. But out of that, I have a beautiful daughter, and so hopefully get to go back one day and say goodbye.
Say goodbye to everyone. It brings up a question which makes me a bit curious, and certainly probably one that I'm aligning in my world. I've done a lot of travel for my work as well, and if it wasn't for COVID, I think I would still have, I call it a dysfunction for me, a dysfunctional view of, I'm traveling away for my family and I'm doing it for my family. Do you think, and just curiosity question, do you think now you've been home with your family, you would choose to go back and be away from them like that all the time? Is the COVID time changed your view?
Yeah. I think for me, part of it was the fact that the decision was made for me, and I couldn't make the decision. If I'd have, say I had a job coming up and it was right, there's a job, it's worth this much to you, it's a big thing. If I was on a new big movie, but you're going to be away for 6 months, at least you've kind of got you can either say yes or no to it. You can weigh it up and it's kind of your decision. Whereas when the hotel quarantine and all that was made, it was that wasn't my decision, and it was never part of the original thing. So I think if at least I was, if the opportunity was put in front of me and I knew everything that was involved, then maybe you could make that decision a little better. But it's like when you're halfway there and they were to say, you're overseas filming, and they say, oh, you can't go home, blah, blah, blah. And you hang on, this wasn't what I signed up to. I said I'd be home in 2 weeks. No, you got to be here for 6 or 8. That's when you're like, well, hang on, but I mean, if you were at home and they said, hey, do you want to go away for 8 weeks? At least you're making that decision. You're making it together, rather than it feeling like it's made for you. So
Yeah.
it was somewhere in that. So yeah, it's still, I think, being there at that time of my child's birth, I don't know how, I guess the difference is, like, even if say it wasn't COVID times and I had a big job in the States, the thing is, you're never really more than 24 hours of getting home. So say Anna did go early or had to go in, there was some emergency or something, I could say, you know what, 24 hours is doable. I'll do that, but 2 weeks, if someone said, right, if there's an emergency, you're not going to see her for a whole 2 weeks, you're going to be locked in a hotel room. That would be, I just thought the thought of that, not being able to be there for 2 weeks, not moving, at least if you're trying to get home from somewhere, you're moving, you've got progress, but being stuck, that just the thought of that just didn't sit well with me. So
yeah, it's different. It's certainly different times or different thought processes now. Like you said, with COVID, you're restricted and you don't want to be that far away. Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes with COVID, you've got to make those extra sacrifices now. Like, I'm looking at jobs now up in the Gold Coast and Queensland, and it means I've got to go away from the wife, and there might be quarantines, and it's got to be longer than it has to be and all that. A friend of mine just got a job in the States. He had a child when basically the same day I had one, and we had one, and he got a job in the States, and he's had to go over there. So I think he's there for 3 months. So he'll miss 3 months of his child's thing. He's got to come back and then quarantine, and it's hard because she can't really go over. It's, but you got to make those sacrifices, like you say, to support your family. But it's that balance where, at what point, you just weigh up where you're at. At what point do you need to do it? Where, and
brings
up, it's all kind of relative.
Yeah. And as you're saying it, you've got a friend there too, and sort of things that, like, so have you and Anna sat down and talked it through? Like, okay, listen, and I'm making an assumption here. Anna is now choosing. You guys are both choosing together. You're going to sort of pursue your career for the moment. Anna will do the majority of the care work for the baby for a period of time. And then, have you guys discussed kind of this strategy? Because what I find a lot, I'm a dad of 3. My eldest is just about to turn 18. So, on the bit of a backstretch, often finding with new couples, new babies, did you discuss in advance, the workload and who's going to be supported who, and whose career comes first and second, and,
Yep. I think there's probably, I guess, a little bit, like, because I have a bit more of maybe it's a bit more defined career at the moment, there's maybe a little bit more edge towards my way. But at the same time, if Anna got something really big, then I'd do the opposite, and I would support her. I guess, I guess it really just depends. We have had the discussion, and we'd support either one of us. But I think at the moment, the way my career is going, it is, that, and with acting, it's a lot of it, you got to move around. So we have definitely discussed that. And Anna said she would come and support me where we are, wherever we are. And I think that would be the thing. If there was like a 1 month job or a 2 month job, you might just go yourself. But if it's, any longer than that, then we would go together as a family. Fingers crossed, hoping. But on the flip side of that, if Anna, we work in a kind of, Anna was a lawyer, but now she's got some really great ambassadorships and things, and she's done a bit of hosting, presenting, and all that. So if there was a big job that came up for her, then I would support her. A lot of her stuff is more like a day here or a week here, or never longer than a week. Whereas, when you land a role, it's like weeks, months. So I think that's where we sort of lie in that. Definitely, and at the moment, when I've not been properly employed for a while, so I've been able to really pick up, maybe it's 60-40 with father mother relationship. Sometimes it feels like 50-50, but I've been able to do a lot, which is great.
That's
just
awesome.
Can't breastfeed.
Well, at the end of the day, you do what you can. I think that's the important part. When new couples having a baby, communication is so important. Talk it through. Don't assume anything, because that's where you end up in trouble. But that brings us to talking about your career. It has been an interesting, I would call maybe an adventure. Your career started out in the world of chiropractic. You're a qualified practicing chiropractor. A world of health. You've got the Robards Method workout system, 12-minute abs.
Is that better than the 6-minute abs, 12-minute abs? Have you seen that movie?
We played. I'm like, yeah, should we do what's the sweet spot there? But look, there's a bit of a play on words, it's we say the 12-minute ab challenge, but really it's 12 minutes to strengthen your core and try and lose a bit of fat. And maybe reveal those hidden abs. Everyone's got some abs under there, it's maybe reveal that, but it's a really good way just to get people in. It's kind of a teaser into the bigger program. So it's just a really easy one. And through COVID, we ended up doing that for free for everyone. We wanted to put it out there. So we just said, you know what, I want to help people in this time. And we pumped that out for free. So we had thousands and thousands of people sign up to it. So don't know if we got any abs out of it. We'll see what happens. But at least, a few people strengthening their cores and losing a bit of excess fat.
Absolutely, mate. The COVID abs is a good thing. I think certainly for me, I for the first time really tripled and doubled down on Uber Eats, and we had to sort of have a little look at ourselves at that during COVID. We ended up in quite a bad eating behaviour, so we had to sort of sharpen that up.
Where are you guys based?
We're in the Gold Coast.
In the Goldie, yep.
Yeah.
I really felt it. That second lockdown in Melbourne, I really felt it, and that was where it was. It was tough down there, where you couldn't go out at night, and you could go out for an hour a day. Like that became really tough, and it was at least I still had to work. So many people, like, we were allowed to go to work, but so many people had work taken away as well. So I just wanted to do as much as I could to kind of encourage people to, at least with our abs program, there's a whole recipe list and things, and encourage people to try new things and learn new things and cook at home, just to fill in the hours of the day sometimes. So I think we had a lot of people through COVID who got healthier, and a lot of people who went the other way. So it's kind of the two spectrums, but
certainly, I think there was a few people who learnt some new skills, and I think that like you said at the start about COVID, there's a gift or an opportunity in some of these things as well. And if we can see them as a problem or see them an opportunity to really appreciate something, I think that that's a good thing. At the end of the day. But mate, your career has been modelling. You've written a book, 2 years in Neighbours. Technically the original Bachelor. You fell in love and got married from the Bachelor. That's a pretty amazing outcome for you and Anna. The true love really does work. Love at first sight potentially, but your career has been sort of weaved throughout maybe a few different things, but there's probably an underlying theme there. Do you feel like you're still looking for the thing, or do you reckon you know where you're going for the next 10, 20 years? It's always an interesting question.
It's funny. I've always been like, and I don't know whether, genetically, you look at your fast twitch, your slow twitch, are you a sprinter or are you a long distance guy? I'm like somewhere in the middle. I've kind of always been good at a lot of things, but not really good at one thing. That's like me to a T. But at the same time, the one thing I've always had is really good balance. So somewhere in there, whether physically, genetically, whether it's been taught, whether it's the environment, I've always been really good at balancing and helping others find balance in their life. Because as a chiropractor, you're seeing so many people out of balance, whether it's physically, their body is out of balance, they're wearing and tearing through one knee or one side of their back more, or nutritionally they're out of balance, so their body is reflective of a body that's out of balance. It's either overweight or underweight, or their mental health is out of balance. There's so many things. So I've always been really good at finding balance and helping people find balance. And then, from a career point of view, I like to try different things. I used to be really good at physics. I love physics. It's about finding the underlying formula, and then you can get to the answer. If you understand the underlying thing, you can always get to the answer, extrapolate out to the answer. I've never been really good at rope learning things. That's why learning lines was so hard for me at first. Rope learning lines, that was a real challenge. Not the way my brain works. But I think the thing with the acting, I think I've found it. But in saying that, I never say, I'm always interested in lots of different things, but I've really wanted to do the acting for a long, long time, but I've never had the balls to do it. I always doubted myself, and I had kind of probably hid behind my degree and things. And, you'd go to uni, you do your degree, you become something, you wear that hat, and that's the hat you wear for the rest of your life. And I finally got to this point after years and years and years of pushing myself out of my comfort zone, out of my comfort zone, out of my comfort zone, and so many years of nerves, things like The Bachelor, things like all this stuff I've done TV wise, all this stuff I've done in, starting my own practice, all those things that you do, they're constantly pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Once you do that, and then you achieve whatever it was you were going to achieve, you kind of, you get that self-belief, and the self-belief grows and grows and grows and grows, because there's so much self-doubt. But as you never get the self-belief if you don't push yourself above where you think you're capable of. If you don't try and expand your comfort zone, then you're only going to be stuck at this level of self-belief, which is limiting. So the more, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, or it's like, okay, just, if I'm backstage, I'm about to walk out somewhere and do a big interview or do something or do a show or Dancing with the Stars, and you're on a million people live watching you and you're about to go out, you're like so bloody nervous, but I've got to do this because I know at the end of that, no matter what, you're going to expand, you're going to become better, and you're going to open up more opportunities, and life is just going to you're going to get more out of life, I guess, depending on what success means to different people. But for me, it's just, really having more days where I have a big smile on my face. And that's kind of what success is for me. I can get more specific, but that's really comes down to how many hours a day do I have a smile on my face? That's to me a success. And so, so it's been finally, like with the acting, it's finally got to that point. And I'm like, if I don't do this now, I'm gonna miss it, and I'll regret it. And it's always the things you don't do you regret the most, never the things you do, usually. So that's one of the things I've really looked at. I've done a lot with DiMartini. I know you talked to him recently. He's been a good mentor for me. Yeah. A lot of.
I was about to ask that. Great. I was about to ask that. Certainly by the sounds of some of the experiences that you're sharing here, and many people have probably seen you, after the nervousness, backstage, and out front, you've got the smile and you're looking great and you're doing all the moves, whatever it might be, Dancing with the Stars, Australian Ninja, whatever it is, DiMartini is one of those people that you look to, or maybe get some support from. The podcast is called The Well Faculty, and it's a bit of a play on, the two meanings of that, the faculty that you have, your own personal faculties, which you're talking about, health and all of those sorts of things as well, mental, emotional, spiritual health. But on the flip side, the faculty members, the people that you go to or surround yourself with to help you face those fears, push through, get to the other side. DiMartini's one. Is there other people in your faculty of support have helped you so far and continue to support you as you go forward?
Yeah, in different projects, I think as a chiropractor, my mentor there, Nick Wood, who's my boss, who I started working with initially, I remember he was one of the people I was sort of tossing up. I'd been to uni, and I'd studied exercise science and rehab, and before that I'd studied photonics, was a physics degree on light physics and stuff. So I'd already done like nearly 6 years of uni, and I'd been interested. I had my girlfriend at the time, her brother was studying to be a chiropractor. I was asking him a lot of questions. I'd been to a chiropractor and had really good results. And then the thought of going, God, I'd have to go back for another 3 years. That would make 9 years full time of uni. Like, do I really want to do this? But my boss, who became my boss, I remember I was out having a few beers. We were probably half cut at where was it? Up in it was actually the club. It was under the clinic where he worked in King's Cross. And I remember talking to him one night, and he goes, mate, I'm a chiropractor, I earn decent money, but I love getting up and going to work every day. I get to help people, and I love getting up, going to work every day. And that was one of the things that really stuck with me. There's not many people who tell you that they love getting up, going to work every day, and they earn a decent, it was a pretty good wage, at the time. And I was like, man, that's what I'd like, a bit of financial freedom, or at least feeling safe with my finances, and being able to say I love getting up and going to work every day. That was one of the things that really stuck with me. And then I ended up not long after I graduated, I was like, hey, I'd like to do that. Can I do that with you? And then I got a job, and then I've been with him. Then we started up a few clinics together as well, and I'm still, even though now I only work once, I work once a fortnight. I go in just with my regular patients, but I'm still working with him. It's been probably 12 years or something now. So he was definitely one of my mentors. He's, from a business point of view, he's now, I think he's got like 18 clinics or something like that, or 20 clinics or something like that, least his hand in some. So he's done well, and he's helping a lot of people, and it's amazing. So lots of different people. My mum, my family, like there's my dad's been a big one. So many different people.
It's good to have those role models, because it's so important for, I often see in the world, I mean, you've got a great following on Instagram and Facebook, and often that's seen from the outside as just that person, and the world doesn't get to see the mentor you've had for 12 years and the hard work you've had to go through to get to where those things are, the Insta famous or the fake book lifestyle or whatever it might be, whatever those things are. I'm always fascinated to hear the backstory of people who've achieved something amazing and are looking to continue to achieve something amazing in that sort of space, because there's some evidence, there's some I think I'm a wannabe mad scientist personally. I want to find some of the little bits that can be applied anywhere, and that stuff. And you I do know we were having a chat before. You're obviously your mentors rubbed off on you from a financial point of view as well. You're an avid investor. A lot of the listeners listening into this are property investors from my crew, my crowd, and you're a bit of an avid investor along the way. You've pursued your career and increased your earning potential with your passions, but also along the way you've been smart enough to put some aside for a rainy day and for the future as well.
Yep. Yeah. No, my dad's a builder. He's an accountant, and he owns a building company. And he's kind of gone from the accounting bit. Now he does more the legal stuff at the moment. But he was always being good. I think when I was 18, he came to me and said, look, son, you probably should start looking at investing and doing some stuff. We've got a little project, and there's a place here. I reckon use what savings you've got. I'll give you a little bit of a loan to kick it off. And back then, I think I bought a place. It was like 164 grand, brand new 3-bedroom, and it luckily had got that. It was when the first homeowners grant came out, so that made it all a little bit easier and achievable.
Perfect.
And then it doubled in like 3 years. So I did really, really well out of that. But the funny thing with that was that I had it for like, we only just sold it a couple of years ago, but it had this really steep incline, and then it just sort of patted along for a while. But I would then, as a uni student, I spent 9 years as a full-time uni student. I would then borrow off the equity along the way to support me through uni. So it was a really nice way that I always had a bit of cash in the bank. And I was working cafe jobs and personal training and modeling stuff and all these different things, but then also had a bit of cash in the bank from this. I had the offset account. So I'm like, well, how much money can I draw out of this to sit in my offset account? So I just had this safety net. So I was really lucky that I had that, and I paid my dad back like after 2 years or something like that, so it was always had that. And then I finally flicked it on a couple of years ago when we were making way for this. But along the way, it was like I decided we've also got some investments up in Brizzy, and good rental yields up there and things. I got Anna into it, so we've had a few little things there, and then finally we were able to I was renting a little place, and it was funny, like the rentals I'd bought were much nicer homes than the place I was actually living in Bondi. And it got to a point, and I'd been there for 10 years, but I was paying it was pretty good rent and things, but it was comparatively, it was like a hole compared to these other places. And you kind of think, you've got these other places people living in, and you're living in this little old thing. But finally we bought our place here, I guess, which is another, it's another big investment in Sydney, which is, well, it's a tax-free investment too.
Yeah, I like that, mate. Capital gains tax-free is always a nice way to make some money. That's for sure. Yeah.
So it's a funny one. This one, we bought it. We got a very good deal because it's got a set of stairs at the front of it. So basically you've got there's about 70 stairs by the time you get up to our unit. So it's like garden, outdoor garden stairs.
Yes.
Moving in was a real bitch, and with a 300 kilo piano, one step at a time, that was nasty. But once you're in here, it's great. You get so used to. There was a lady, she was in her 80s. She was on the top floor, so she had another 20 stairs or something to get up. But you know, it was we were super lucky here. I think by those stairs made it at the time more affordable. Anything like this, like we got water views. It was fully renovated, and anything at the time like this was about $1 million more. So I'm like, you know what, for $1 million saving, I'll walk up the stairs.
And
So,
keeps your legs in good shape as well. Keeps your fitness up.
Exactly. And now we're carrying Elle up. It gives us, you know, as she gets bigger and bigger, it's we're going to get stronger and stronger as well.
I like it. One of those things I was just thinking before. Did you come out of uni without a HECS debt, or did you have the HECS debt in tow and then you paid it off later?
I came out of uni with about an $80,000 HECS debt. And I think I just finished paying it off a couple of years ago. So it was pretty gnarly. It was just sitting there. It was kind of like just constantly just drawing away. You know, the interest is going up on it and stuff. But finally got that knocked off. So you kind of, when you look at, like, you know, what you charge as a chiropractor for a fee, you know, when you consider, right, you've got an $80,000 HECS that you're paying off. I gave 9 years of my time to it, eventually getting there. You got to take all those things in. Sometimes people go, well, it's $80 to come and see you. You're like, yeah, so I'm still paying off all this stuff as well, you know. 9 years of my life, I was full time, you know. I couldn't even hardly earn a wage myself. So yeah, it puts things in perspective.
Probably, if we did the math, I reckon if you said, all right, the property you bought at 18 probably would have tracked along with the HECS debt. So it's probably like a zero-sum game there, you know, potentially if you measured it that way.
I think because I kept using the money to fund my lifestyle, you know, so I could, I think by the time I sold it, I'm like, is that all the profit that's there? Because I think even like 15 years later, you know, I think the original loan was probably 150 grand. And I think like 10 years later, what I owed on the property was still 150 grand, maybe 200 grand, you know? So yeah. But you know what? It was a great investment because it enabled me to get through and have the odd little overseas trip here and there, and not to have to eat baked beans on toast for 10 years. So
yeah, it did its job. And that's the point often with investing. You've got to take a little bit every now and then to make sure you're not living on red beans and rice for forever and run out of steam to get there, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we might change gears a little bit. You certainly chose to consciously or unconsciously be thrust into the world of the public eye, and you know, the paparazzi certainly like to follow your story along with you and your family, you know, and you know, sometimes that can be a blessing because you get the exposure that you want in your career, and sometimes it can be not such a blessing potentially for your private life. And also in Australia, you know, the tall poppy syndrome. You know, for those listening in, and I think it's this, you know, you talked about it pushing out of a comfort zone. Your example might be being more in the public. Other people listening in might be, you know, choosing, you know, to become an investor, choosing to start a business, choosing to change jobs because they're not happy going to work, right? So, but the correlation, you know, how do you deal with that, you know, public scrutiny for you and you know, the tall poppy thing, you know, in that world? I'm sure it's reasonably voluminous in its, you know, focus.
Like I think it's you know, really didn't kick in publicly until I did Bachelor days, you know, and then you just thrust out, bang. And so for me, going to that, they asked me to do it. They asked me numerous times to come in and interview, and I was like, yeah, I'll call you back. Yeah, I'll call you back. And they kept the pressure on, and then finally said, look, they said, we'll come to your home. It's like, all right, come in, you know. And it kind of just went from there. But the main thing was I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't really looking for that. I wasn't looking for the fame. I wasn't looking for it. But when they came and sold it to me that, you know, we've got 25 of the best girls around the country. I just got out of a relationship, and I was like, you know, that's kind of decent odds. I actually really believe that I could potentially find someone, you know. And then when you get on and they kind of more so pick like 5 girls they think you'd go on a date with, and then 20 characters for the show, you realize they haven't necessarily gone and picked 25 of the best girls they think would, you know, suit you, you know, they got to make a show at the same time. So not to say that's a bad thing about the girls, but it's just, you know, they want characters to run the show. And so I was very lucky in that, out of the few that they thought I might end up with, and I was really lucky that. And it was on the same thing for Anna. She didn't put herself forward; her friend put herself forward and went from there. But that then the thing I kind of really, I'm like, yeah, do I want to put myself out there? Do I want to have my first kiss on TV? Do I want to be judged? And I guess all my life I've always wanted to be, kind of done a bit of work on this with different DeMartini, with different people, and with NET practitioners and that. And I've always wanted just to be liked and not to be hated. And, we did a bit of work on it, and it was sort of, we're looking at, okay, everyone wants to be loved. Some people don't need it as much. Some people are really needy for it. We all have egos. We all want, people to stroke our egos, but going on something like this, it can do the absolute opposite. And you could be the most hated person. We've seen it with some people. And I kind of had to find this trust in myself. My dad said to me, he said, right, what are the 3 things you want to be seen as on there? And I said, right, I think trustworthy, intelligent, and down to earth, and like honest, trustworthy. And he goes, right, go to the EP, ask him, is this how he wants to shoot? Because some of it, they can edit things to look a certain way and whatever. He's like, if that's what you want, can they make you, if you give that, is that what they want as well in their main character? And he goes, yep. So we had that conversation, and luckily first year, I think they definitely wanted to make their Bachelor look good. But I went through, and there were so many challenging situations every day, but I had to go, right, rather than freak out about, because so much of it will be out of my control, but as long as I remain honest, I've got to trust my intelligence, that I can, if I'm in a situation, I can work my way through it. I've been there before in certain things. This will be a lot of new stuff, but I had to kind of find that belief in myself and take a stab and go, right, the benefits at the end of this might outweigh the negatives, and I've got to trust myself that I can deliver. I'm not a dickhead. I'm not an arrogant asshole. I got to trust that my true self is going to come through, and I want to be my most true self. I did a lot of work. I went to DeMartini. I think I spoke to him just before I went on this and just after. And I was working with another guy who was like, put out to the universe. He would go through and go, right, there's a sort of a DeMartini thing. And you go, right, you're going to list down, you got 2 minutes, write down 50 things you want in the ideal girl. So you'd write down, blah, 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 as stupid as they were, some of it was like, I don't know, I think I even wrote brunette at the time, ended up with a blonde, but just little things, just whatever comes on top of your head. And it's like, I really believe putting that out to the universe and being really clear, the more clear you are on what you want, the more you're going to see it. Like when you buy a VW car and you all of a sudden you see them on the road all the time, the more clearer you are and you get clear in what you want, the more likely you are to see it, attract it in, have conversations with people that are going to attract the right people in to make that happen. So I think clarity was super important for me. And the more clarity I got, never been 100% clear on anything, but like the more you do the work and the more clarity you get, the more you then kind of believe in yourself. You see, things I've done in the past, like vision boards, I think is so important. Seeing it every day, getting really clear on what your goals are, where you're going, and believing in that, because there's so much in my industry, like as an actor, and that there's so much self-doubt. There's so many things against you. You have to constantly work at the belief in yourself, and you've got to do the work. You can't just say, oh, I'm the best actor in the world without doing the work. You got to do the work, but it all comes together. You got to do the hard work. But then sometimes it takes so much motivation to get up off the couch and put the energy into doing the work. I might be running a scene that's going to end up nowhere, but I've got to bring up all these emotions, and that's draining, but you've got to do it because you've got to see the big picture and the long game as well.
Yeah. Do you have a daily, weekly, monthly, like have you got a routine that keeps you in that zone? Is there something that you do in that way?
Yeah, I've never been one to have like set routine, it's 6 a.m. up, 7 a.m. this, 8 a.m. that. But I went through a little bit there where I was journaling. I'd have on the journal, I'd have like, what are your key tasks for the day? What are you gratitude for? What are you grateful for? Blah, 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 blah. And that was really good. I would have monthly goals. And now I kind of still do that in my head. I don't necessarily write it out. I think it's good to go back and forth every now and then to kind of get back into the habit, but I generally do it in my head. I'm like, what are my key tasks for the day? I'm going to nail them. I want to try and nail them early. I definitely, somewhere in my day, I've got to have exercise. I've got to sweat. And if I'm at the moment, I'm working on a knee strengthening program. So I have that. I always come back. The physical is probably the thing I sometimes put first and foremost above everything. If I feel good physically, if I'm getting that sweat, that stretch, that all of that, everything else kind of, I feel better. I feel more balanced. I feel my energy is better. I'm more focused, all of that. And then on top of that, I think doing the fitness is the main thing that, you know, kind of drives my day. I make sure I get that in. And then around that, I start to do, you know, there's family time, and there's things like, oh no, Anna and I have got we've got really good communication. We've got things, she's got to do stuff, I got to do stuff, I got to babysit, she's got to babysit. So we work that out, and then we make sure we've got time to knuckle down and do the things that the acting thing at the moment, when you're not, you know, when you've got a job, it's easy. You know, when I'm on the Neighbours, I know I've got X amount of scenes tomorrow. I have to make time to get them. I cannot rock up to work and not know my lines. So sometimes, you know, it might be 5 hours of work at home. You kind of got to be on that. When you're in between jobs, you don't necessarily have anything. So you've got to keep the muscle going. So you've got to be, right, I've got to book in with the coach. I've got to learn this scene and this script. And a lot of that, you know, parties just going, oh, you don't really need to do it, but you've got to be so self-motivated for that stuff.
Strong discipline. And, you know, you said the physical stuff for you leads to that other feeling of wellness and capacity and energy as well. I mean, I think that would be, you know, very similar to a lot of people that, like, your base, belief system or whatever, it was grounded in health by the sounds of things. You know, I understand or believe that your grandmother was sort of maybe the first one to sort of introduce you to, you know, this health stuff many years ago.
Yeah, my grandma was, she reminds me a little bit of, I get inspiration a lot from my grandma and The Rock. They're two very similar people. You see The Rock now, where his grounding thing is always been his exercise. You know, I just saw something today. He just finished his midnight session, and he always gets it in. That's the thing. The imperative he generally gets in most days. And like my grandma, growing up with her, she did Chinese massage from when I was like 5 years old. She did Qigong, Tai Chi. She did all this different stuff that got me to think outside the box on health. And she used to talk about working from your dun tin, you know, breathing in the purple jacaranda color and watching the sun burst out of the ocean, and how good that is for you. And all this stuff that we've now learned, you know, the light, that purple light is healing, the you know, being there at sunrise, working from your dun tin, which is your core, from your belly, for your breathing. Like, she was just so ahead with so many different things. And she was like the real sensei. She was like Mr. Miyagi with the wax on, wax off. You'd be like, what is this message? This seems really weird. Why are we stopped, parked on the street, breathing in the jacaranda color? Like, you can't even breathe it in. It doesn't have a scent, you know. Like, I was questioning it, but you look back now and, you know, no, it's the wax on, wax off, or the up and down on the fence. It's she was so good in so many ways. And then learning just the simple, like learning the power you can have with the human touch, you know, with her massage. I used to go and get almost weekly massages from her. But also, she was one of my first employers. So I used to go and mow her lawn. And that was one of my first jobs. I get $20 a fortnight from mowing a lawn when I was, you know, 13, 14. So she taught me so many things: the value of money, the value of $20, and how hard you got to work for it, and all these things. So yeah, so much has come from her.
Yeah, it sounds like some valuable family members surrounded you when you were in your formative years, Tim. So
yeah,
something to be grateful for, that's for sure.
And when I was out of line, she would pick me up as well. She'd let me know when I was out of line. You know?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town, and one of the most amazing things about that was I was pretty well related to everyone in the town. But it was one of those things where, you know, you could be who you wanted to be, but anyone in the town, including non-family members, if you're out of line, they'd give you a kick up the bum or rouse on you if you weren't behaving, which was always good, keep us on track. So fantastic.
100%.
Your major passion, exercise, you know, the world of the Robards Method, et cetera, you know, so that really still shows, you know, a strong core part of what you're doing now still as you go forward. Will you always keep that as part of the mix of, you know, who Tim is to the world?
Yeah, I think like, I just love, I always felt like I'm a bit of a teacher, a bit of a, maybe the sensei that my grandma was. So I feel like that so much of her is in me.
Yes.
And I feel like I've always been good with balance. And I think being a bit of a healer in a way, that's what my grandma was. And I think she's definitely passed that on. So whether it's in the clinic, one-on-one, whether it's through social media, whether it's through, I work with Medibank now, creating videos for them. I've got the Robards Method. So there's so many different little avenues that I've got that I love it. It's kind of like, some stuff I get paid for, some stuff I do totally for free, and I get nothing out of it. And it's great. Like, it's a great way of getting a living doing it. But at the same time, a lot of it is kind of like my charity work as well. And I just love that you can help. I think, like, my goal of success is the more hours a day you can have a smile on your face, the better. And the more I can help other people get out of pain, become more happy, more positive, succeed, I like that's just that's one of my passions. And I think it'll always be there in some form. It may take different routes, whether it's the Robards Method, whether it's other things, but that's one of the things I love doing. I love, have random people come up on the street and go, mate, I just cooked a meal from your book the other night and I loved it. It's changed my whole family. We've all got healthier. We've lost weight. We've done this, we've done that. Or someone will, like, TRM members going, mate, I could never do them. Like, I'm a surfer. I had a shoulder issue for 5 years. I've been doing your TRM program and my shoulder has never been stronger. Now I can surf. Now I've got to play with my kids more. And now actually their kids are working out with them on the ring. So it's turned into a family thing. Like, I love hearing that. And it's, that's a hard one to say goodbye to. So I'll just be looking for ways to do that. But, you can't be master of everything. So you got to put your energy, that's where my head goes, got to do this, this, and this. I got to go, no. I need to focus on my acting. That's my number one, and my family. And that stuff, it's there. But, you got to pick you can't be master of everything.
Not all at the same time anyway. Maybe there's seasons for that stuff. I think what I've learned over the years, you pick a season to focus on different things. Your book, 721.
Yep, the 721 plan. Yep,
721 plan. People can track it down on Pan McMillan, on the Robards Method website also.
Yep, we've gone online. Basically, we're more pushing the online version of that now, which is like a little hub. So you can jump on, you can work it on your phone, you can you don't have to have the book there with you. So if you go down to the supermarket, you're like, oh, what was that recipe? You can bring it up on your phone. It's all there. There's a whole bunch of just simple stuff to simplify understanding the food. The whole front section of it is understanding, carbohydrates, fats, this, that, just the basic stuff. We're not trying to break any crazy molds here. We're just trying to get people a little bit more back on balance. And really, it's just eating more real food.
Yeah, well, I think I'll be grabbing your book after this. I am getting back into rock climbing and bouldering for the first time.
Yep.
I've been sort of back at it for 2 years, and I'm almost 50 now, 48 years old. And I think I just got to take care of my shoulders and my elbows a bit better than I used to. So I think I'll be downloading your book, Tim. And
man, there's a few good. If you want all the free stuff, check out on Instagram. I've put a heap of videos up there on shoulders and how to strengthen them. And that's one of the things I love doing in clinic is strengthening shoulders. The stuff that people are teaching now is really changing from the old. Just do your rotator cuff exercise. There's so much more that you can do than that. And a lot of the stuff I do with Medibank, it's on there. It's free. It's all up there. You'll see it. So give it a go. I've done some with wine bottles. So everyone's got wine bottles at home, water bottles, don't need any weights, no equipment, just a couple of wine bottles. It's got to be Italian. That makes a big difference.
Italian wine. All right. Yeah, that's perfect. I'll get some Italian wine and make sure I take care of my shoulders. I got
exactly. And then when you finished your workout, you just when you finished your workout, you just cork it and rehydrate.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, you and I know Marcus Peirce very well, and he's done some interviews in his podcast 100 Not Out with some of the oldest people in the world. And funnily enough, or not funnily enough, a glass of wine a day, not too bad. People stay pretty well in that space.
I think he told me one of the women that lived the oldest in the world, she'd have a cigarette a day, some chocolate a day, and a glass of wine a day, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it was somewhere there. So I think, it's all in moderation. And some people have just got really good genetics where they can cope with that. Some people can't cope with that. So I think it's balancing moderation with the genetics you're delivered. You can't fight your genetics, but just create an environment that works well in synergy with your genetics.
Maximize it. Oh, that's great tips.
Yeah.
Got some rapid fire questions for you. What book are you reading at the moment?
I'm reading a book on acting. I don't know. Actually, I haven't. It's on my Kindle, so I haven't looked at the front cover for ages. I forget even what it's called. I just turn the Kindle on and I'm like halfway through it. It's a book on acting.
That's good. It's always good to have. I find myself having 4 or 5 books going at any one time. Sometimes I can read them fast, and sometimes I have to read them as bits and then absorb them for days and weeks at a time.
One thing I've been doing, I have been reading, I've signed up to Blinkist. Have you seen Blinkist where they summarize books?
Yes.
So they basically summarize books. You can either hear it as an audio or whatever. So I can read a book in 10, 15 minutes, get the main points, move on. So I do that as well, depending on where I am.
I was inspired by Di Martini. You've chatted to him and you've heard his work as well, how much information he absorbs. Absolute machine and that sort of stuff. So I aspire to be better than I am.
How many of those books in the background have you read?
Well, I can say confidently I've read all of those ones. So that's good. Yeah, I'm an avid reader. I certainly am absorbing books in audio methods these days, at least. One every week or two. I do love a good book. I've been mad for books and podcasts and audio for a long, long time. What's the wine you're drinking at the moment? Italian? It sounds like that's the go.
Yeah, you know what? I love a Barolo, the old Nebbiolo grape. Love a Barolo. And then I've also just bought a bunch of, just because I love the name, and I do like the drink, but they're Chateauneuf de Pape. So the French stuff. Love it. It's a Grenache. It's a Grenache grape.
I know what a Grenache is.
Yeah. It's a French Grenache, Chateauneuf de Pape. Love it.
That sounds pretty flash and fancy, mate. What's your typical breakfast?
You know what? Sometimes I do a bit of intermittent fasting. So sometimes my break fast is a little later. It might be lunch, but then usually I'll have something. You might have something with eggs. Like this morning, Anna actually cooked me brekkie this morning, which was great. So I had we do this little bit of wholemeal toast, wholemeal sourdough with a bunch of avocado, tomatoes, chopped up basil, and a couple of poached eggs. That's a usual sort of go-to. Otherwise, big bowl of oats with a bunch of berries, nuts, seeds, all that good stuff.
Good stuff to start the day. I'm getting hungry now. I've been intermittent fast each day and have been doing for about 2 years now. So I don't have my first meal until 1 o'clock. Been fantastic for me.
I've kind of gone through phases. If I'm going through a phase where I'm like a bit more stressed and the cortisol levels are up, I find the intermittent fasting plus that is a little too much for me, and I'll back it off and I'll start eating a bit earlier. But when I'm going really strong and I'm not in a high level of stress, then I kind of break fast usually 12, 1, 2, something like that.
Awesome. Actor or actress that you aspire to maybe work with, or
so many. I love Christian Bale, Tom Hardy, and then one of the best actresses of our time, Cate Blanchett. I actually got to work with her on the Armani C campaign. So I had to kind of nibble and kiss up and down her neck. It was rather intense. So I've had my big Academy Award winning moment across working with. It was so funny. We'd have this moment. They'd play this music and they'd go, right, just go for 5 minutes. And I'd be just going back and forth, nibbling on her neck and her ear and back and forth. And we'd go for 5 minutes straight. Then we'd break and we'd go, so, how many kids you got? And okay, back at it. All right, back. It was kind of like, Love Actually. It was a bit like that, the scene, those guys who were the stand-ins for the. It was a little bit like that.
One of my favorite movies, actually, Love Actually. Yeah.
It was very surreal. Yeah. So I think actually doing a proper acting scene. I was just the kind of the modelly guy came in and kissed on her neck, and you see the side and back of my head for a second.
That's me. Quick, there I am.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a question I always ask of my guests, and it goes to your theme, actually, or one of the things we were talking about earlier in today with your mentor saying, hey, I love getting up each day. I love going to work. Because often I've had the privilege to sit across the table from thousands of people over my time interviewing people about their financial well-being. And often some people struggle to understand why someone, if they had the financial capacity not to work, would still go to work. It sounds like your mentor would be the same. And I've interviewed so many people who financially don't have to go to work for a job and money, but they do it because of, a passion, something inside them to give to the world or the universe that they just have to do. So my question to you, Tim, what is the true meaning of wealth to you?
Ooh, true meaning of wealth. I could kind of cross that over with, like, does wealth mean kind of like success, where my meaning of success is kind of mixture of things, being able to help as many people as I can. I believe, and this comes into wealth. I think the more happy people you have around you, if you have a community of happy people, I don't think you can be happy just by yourself. You rely on the guy who makes you coffee in the morning to give you a smile, the guy who drives the ferry, ferry to work, whatever, the Uber driver who picks you up. If I'm surrounded by a bunch of miserable people, then I can't see how my life could be really happy when my community is miserable. So the more I can make my community happy, and I believe that comes from a mixture of, mental health, physical health, being able to provide for yourself. So having a certain amount of financial security, the more I can do that for my community, the happier I am. That's kind of part of the giving out. I want to continue to give out. So the more people I can help, the more success and wealth I have. And then from internally within my family, and that, I think just essentially the more it's not, I think you want, security in your financial success and wealth and that, but just to be happy, as long as I got a smile on my face, meaning that, if I lost what money I do have, I could still be, it didn't depend on money at all. As long as I can still do the things that I love doing, and provide a shelter and somewhat and food for my family, then I'm happy. And that's, like, for me, I still go into the chiropractic clinic once a fortnight. It makes no sense financially, because my insurances and stuff cost me $5,000 a year, and going in once a fortnight, I probably maybe earn $6,000 a year. So I'm like I'm pretty much working for free, even though I'm charging people. I come out of it after tax, like I might make $500 in a year or something. It makes no financial sense, but I do it because I love it. And it's like, again, it feels like my charity thing. I go in and help people out, even though they pay me. I wish I could do it totally for free. Maybe that would be a better model, but I still need to have insurance and things. They won't let me practice without insurance. Like, there's little things that so many things I do now that, not that I'm at the level I could retire, but I still do so many things just because I love it and I want to give back. I think that's really important to some degree.
Yeah, nice. That's a great
long-winded answer to your question.
Well, there's many facets in there, and I think they're important facets, for a lot of people, certainly to you. Tim, really appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the Wealth Faculty podcast today, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully there's a few little takeaways that people can get out of that,
I'm sure there will be. Thanks again, mate.
Perfect. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Wealth Faculty. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe. Where all good podcasts are found, you can find us there. And if you want to watch it, you can subscribe on YouTube, Positive Mentor TV. And until the next episode, take care. Bye for now.